Hi, friends. I'm Lauren, your Read Aloud buddy, and welcome back to the 16th episode of Lauren's Little Listeners. I am so happy that you're here. Before we start reading, make sure that you're cozy and ready to listen. Today, we're continuing our series about our friend Pete the cat. The first book is called Pete the Kitty and the Groovy Playdate. Let's get ready to listen to our first adventure as we're opening the book to the first page. Pete the kitty jumps out of bed. I cannot wait. Grumpy Toad and I have a groovy playdate. Hey, Grumpy Toad, I'm ready to play. It's going to be an awesome day. Pete wants to play with Grumpy Toad's cool blue trucks. Zoom, 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 all around the room. But Grumpy Toad starts to whine. That truck is mine, mine, mine. Pete the kitty says, No worries, that's okay. I'll find something else to play. Pete finds some blocks. Let's build a city, says Pete the kitty. But Grumpy Toad starts to whine. Those blocks are mine, mine, mine. Pete the kitty says, No worries, that's okay. I'll find something else to play. Pete sees a superhero cape. Far out. Have no fear, Super Kitty is here. But Grumpy Toad starts to whine. That cape is mine, mine, mine. Grumpy Toad has all the toys and Pete has none. This playdate is just not fun. Pete is sad. Pete is blue. He thinks about what to do. Grumpy Toad, wouldn't it be better if we were playing together? Grumpy Toad says, My pile of toys has grown, but it's no fun playing alone. Grumpy Toad thinks of all the fun he and Pete have together. Yes, sharing would make this playdate so much better. Grumpy Toad shares his truck with Pete. You push me and I'll push you. Zoom, zoom, vroom, all around the room. Grumpy Toad shares his blocks. Here are the blocks, Pete the kitty, for you and me to build a city. Grumpy Toad shares his cape. Okay, time for superheroes to save the day. Have no fear. Wonder Toad and Super Kitty are here. Grumpy Toad shares all his toys with Pete. They play and play and play. What a groovy, awesome day. Thank you, Grumpy Toad, for sharing your cape, your truck, and your blocks. Wow, sharing rocks. The end. Little listeners, our second book today is called Pete the Cat, Pete at the Beach. Let's continue on our adventure as we're opening the book to the first page. It is a hot day. Pete the cat goes to the beach with his mom and his brother Bob. Let's go in the water, Bob says. Maybe later, says Pete. Bob likes to surf. He rides the big waves. It looks like fun. I'm hot, says Pete. Go in the water, says Mom. Maybe later, says Pete. Pete makes a sandcastle. His mom helps him dig. Here comes a big wave, and there goes Pete. Oh no! Where did his sandcastle go? Bob rides a big wave. Wow, says Pete. That looks like fun. Pete and his mom take a walk. They find seashells. They see a crab. Pete's feet get wet. His feet feel cool. The rest of him is hot. It's time for lunch. Pete eats a sandwich and he drinks lemonade. The sun is very hot, and Pete is very, very hot. But Bob is wet and cool. Let's play ball, says Pete. No thanks, says Bob. I want to surf. Pete throws the ball and his mom catches it. Let's get our feet wet, says Mom. Well, okay, says Pete. The water is cool. It feels good, so Pete goes in deeper. Bob waves to Pete. I want to show you how to surf, he yells. Pete does not say maybe later. He says, let's do it. Lie on the board, says Bob. Pete lies on the board. Paddle, says Bob. Pete paddles out and he waits for a big wave. A big wave is coming. Stand up, says Bob. And Pete stands up. And then Pete falls down. It was scary, but it did not hurt. Try again later, says Bob. But Pete wants to try again now. Pete lies down again. He paddles out and waits. Here comes a wave. Pete stands up. This time he rides the wave. Good job, says Bob. Pete wants to surf all day. Bob does too. So they take turns. Pete and Bob rock and roll with the waves. What a great day! It is okay to be afraid, but it is more fun to surf. The end. Friends, our last book is called Pete the Cat, Hickory, Dickory, Dock. Let's find out what happens as we're opening the book to the first page. Hickory, Dickory, Dock. Pete the cat went up the clock. The clock struck 1. Pete went down. Hickory, Dickory, Dock. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Hickory, Dickory, Dock. Grumpy Toad went up the clock. The clock struck 2. Grumpy Toad went down. Hickory, Dickory, Dock. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Hickory, Dickory, Dock. Squirrel went up the clock. The clock struck 3. Squirrel went down. Hickory, Dickory, Dock. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Hickory, Dickory, Dock. Bob went up the clock. The clock struck 4. Bob went down. Hickory, Dickory, Dock. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Hickory, Dickory, Dock. Marty went up the clock. The clock struck 5. Marty went down. Hickory, Dickory, Dock. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Hickory Dickory Dock. Alligator went up the clock. An alligator? Oh no! Creak! The clock broke. Hickory Dickory Dock. The end. Thank you for joining me, your Read Aloud buddy, in this episode of Lauren's Little Listeners. Today we read about Pete the Cat's adventures. The books we read were Pete the Kitty and the Groovy Playdate, Pete the Cat, Pete at the Beach, and Pete the Cat Hickory Dickory Dock. Which book was your favorite? Let me know in the comments and polls. I'll see you next time on Lauren's Little Listeners for another story time adventure.